Alright everybody, it is day number 2 of Megasquirt install. I got that block in there, and what I realized once I got it in, went to put fuses in it, is that the fuses I bought are not the right size. Trying to find the tachometer signal wire. I'm going to wait until the car's running and maybe worry about that. Now what I've got to do is I've got to get this block all wired up. This is going to run solely off of the primary wire harness, which is this harness up here for the main relay, and I'm just going to take the power wire running from that main relay, splice it off into 6 wires and plug them all into here. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm going to start working on, is getting that block done, and hopefully soon I can go and actually get the Megasquirt in the car bolted down. Alright, I've got all the power running to the block right there, and I tested everything, so it is all good. And I went ahead and I actually have the Megasquirt bolted down inside of the car, sitting right there. Now I think is actually the time to go and start running the harness from inside the car out there into the engine bay. I still need to sort through this giant harness right here and remove some stuff from it and kind of remake it. And then I need to go through and still identify every wire and write it down somewhere. And then I can actually start connecting things to the Megasquirt harness, which is pretty exciting. And then yeah, I gotta get the voltage regulator in the car somewhere because it's just sitting in this box still. But the Megasquirt's actually in the car, which is pretty exciting. So now I'm gonna go and get that wire harness fed through, start identifying these wires. Alright, well, the Megasquirt harness is all the way up into the engine bay now, and I'll show you where I mounted it, because I mounted it in a slightly different spot because there's an issue with the length of the harness. Put it right here behind the seat. This will actually work a lot easier for me, and I think it looks pretty good right there. I was pretty happy with that. And the harness just runs along the side of the seat and then up the hole where my 0 gauge is also at, and then out here into the bay it comes up here, and then I got one zip tie right there holding it up, comes out right here. So that's where I've gotten so far with that. Now I just need to identify every wire, write stuff down. I've got some plugs in here. That one I've got to go through and remove a bunch of stuff. Once that's done, I can actually start connecting wires to the Megasquirt, and pretty soon here I'll be able to attempt to boot the ECU up and see if I get any sort of signal or anything from it. Alright everybody, I just finished going through all of the wires and figuring out what everything is on all of those plugs and everything, and figuring out which wire in the engine bay that they all go to. It took quite a bit of time to get some of them figured out. The IC valve and the crank position sensor were the most difficult, but these are the notes. So I've got the color that the wire actually is, what it is, which pin number it is, and then which color the wire is coming off of that pin from the Megasquirt harness. And that is all of that. There's some things that aren't written on here, like all the switched 12 volt stuff I didn't write down because I have all that stuff figured out. That's easy. It was just all the sensors and stuff. Throttle position signals and stuff are fairly picky about how they're ran. Somebody at one point in time went down here and they didn't even butt connect these together. They freaking twist tied them together and then had electrical tape wrapping around them. You can still see some of it right there. Like, what kind of BS is this? And don't do this. Please don't ever do this. That is just total bullshit. I got that plastic wrap stuff up there. I'm going to make some nice clean looking looms for all of these. If this video ends up being really long, I apologize. I might break it up into 2 parts. We will see. It just depends on how much footage I have. I want to make sure I'm in depth on everything. I'm going to make those looms. I'm going to start splicing stuff in, and I will give you guys another progress update. Alright, I got the wire looms I need to make made. This is the one for the injectors. I got all that plastic stuff. Hopefully it doesn't end up being too bulky, because then I'll just have to go and remove at least these little legs off of it. So there's that. And then this is the one that has the crank wires and the alternator wire, and I've cleaned everything up, got more of the plastic stuff. So now I'm going to first get the injector harness plugged in. The injector, there's one of them. I mean, they're all just lined up right here. Pretty easy to get to. and it looks like this harness will definitely fit down there. I'm going to do these first and get them hooked up to the Megasquirt harness and to the power at that distributor block right there. So I'm going to get that bundle of wires plugged in. I'm going to get the injector wires plugged in and start splicing in the injector wires. Probably start splicing in the crank position sensor wires. Basically just go from there, get the coil pack back in, get as much of it wired as I can. Alright, well, all of the plugs for the stuff behind the engine and the injectors are all plugged in. And you'll notice I got sick and tired of the hood being in my way, so I pulled it off and I sat it right there. Here's the injector harness. I got it tucked back up underneath the intake manifold in the stock location. This power wire from the alternator is plugged in. It runs up here into this. And then these are the wires for the voltage regulator, these Christmas colored ones. And then these 3 wires are for the Hall sensor. Now it is time just to start attaching wires basically to the Megasquirt harness. Really excited to get this all hooked up. And then hopefully in the next hour or so, I can go grab my laptop and try to actually power the Megasquirt on. Alright, every wire from the ECU is plugged in, aside from the one wire for the extra coil pack, and then there's a bunch of 12-volt sources that I haven't ran. The power for the ECU is actually plugged in. All of the grounds for like the fuel pump and everything is hooked up to the ECU. Everything that needs to get wired into the ECU is done. I'm gonna go grab my laptop and bring it out here and get the serial cables already out here, actually sitting on the table. I'm gonna go plug the battery into the car, power it on, and we will see if I can get any sign of life from it and see if the computer can plug into it and maybe potentially see if I can get any readings from any of the sensors that are plugged in already. Alright guys, this is so freaking cool. The Megasquirt is powered up and actually connected to the laptop, and I can prove it. Watch this dial right here. I can hit the throttle and it actually picks up on my throttle input. Now that I'm actually connected to it, I'm going to continue doing the rest of the wiring, get all the power ran to everything, all the 12 volt that needs to be run to everything, get all of that done, and then get that DB15 put together, get that one wire ran up for the ignition coil B. And then I gotta get that one vacuum laying ran in here to run to the ECU. And then I can load a map on here and I can attempt to start this hunk of shit for the first time on Megasquirt. Hopefully it'll start up first try, but it's just nice to see a sign of life from the ECU, and at least I know that one of my sensors is wired right. So that's exciting. Alright everybody, it is the same day, but it is about probably 10 hours later. I ended up going in the house to eat something and to warm up because it was getting cold. It got down to about 40 degrees last night. I went inside and I just had to go to sleep. So right now I'm actually about to go get something to eat. I'm about to probably go buy a pizza or something. And then I'll come back and get back to work on this. Alright, I've got even more wiring done. I've got the ground and the power for the O2 sensor attached, and I also ran the signal wire for this temperature switch right here off of the O2 sensor power, so I don't have to run extra wires down this way. And then I got the signal wire coming out of that switch running back, and it's just this black wire sitting right here, so that when I do get the fan wiring put back in, I can just attach it. All that is left is vacuum line from app sensor and signal, or not the signal, oh yeah, the signal for the coil B. And then once those are hooked up, I can try to start this thing. I'm going to crank it and see if it'll run for a second, see if it'll fire or do anything. And once I get the car to fire up for a few seconds, I might let it run for a minute. We'll just see. I'm going to power it off because I don't want it to get warm. And then I'm going to start tucking all these wires up. I'll finish putting my fan wiring in. I'll get my intake, my catch can, everything that I had to remove to get to this stuff, like the one headlight ballast and stuff, get all that put back in, and also the voltage regulator is all hooked up. There's this box right here. Somehow these two holes right here were sitting spaced out just right for me to bolt it directly, and I didn't have to self-tap anything, which is pretty cool. Now I'm gonna go and get that map run, get that DB15 put together so that I can attach that signal wire for the coil, and then we will attempt our first start ever on the Megasquirt. Everything on the car is wired. I've got the switch, or not the switch, the wire for the one ignition thing hooked up right there, and then it runs over into the main harness. You got the vacuum line and everything, you can see them right there, all attached. Everything is hooked up, and I've already tried to crank it and start it, and every time I try to start it, the ECU or the Megasquirt powers off. It tells me it's offline on the laptop and it powers off, and I've got the car to start and run for about 2 seconds once, and then the ECU powered off again. So that's what I'm chasing around right now. But here's this yellow wire is the one that runs back to that DB15, and like I said, power is run to everything. But the car fired up and it ran for a second, and I know it ran because the alternator belt squealed like it always does. The car's on. Yeah, the ECU's on right now. I can jump the signal for the starter real quick if I can get these untwisted. I can turn it over. You guys saw that the ECU is on right now, and then when I go back in there, the ECU will be powered off. Yep, offline. So I'm trying to figure that out. Alright, well, I've got good news and I got bad news. Good news is I did a little bit of changing around with some of the wiring, and the ECU stays on while I'm cranking, which is good. I think the wire I used for my signal for that relay in there is shuts off when you start turning the motor over, because with the ECU hardwired, or well, still fused, but it's plugged directly into live power, the ECU doesn't shut off anymore. And I tried doing the same thing with the ignition, but now my battery's dead, and that's bad news. The battery is dead. I cannot turn the engine over anymore, so I'm going to let it charge overnight. I'm going to come back tomorrow morning when I get off of work, and we're going to see if this thing will run. I got it to run for about 2 seconds earlier, and this car does a thing when you're spamming like the ignition a lot and stuff, where the accessories that are supposed to turn off don't turn off sometimes for at least a second or two, and then they'll turn off, which is probably why it shut off, because it probably cut my ignition off and powered the ECU off at the same time. So the wire that is powering the ECU stays on constantly, so I'm going to use that one for my signal for everything eventually. But I'm trying to get this thing to run because I want to hear it run at least once. But I just now realized that my power for my fuel injectors is also ran off of that same switched stuff. Okay, I have everything wired different. Battery is connected. It charged for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, not very long. Everything powered on. Okay, it is 9:33, so we got about 10 minutes, if that. But I have almost 12 volts. Let's see if we can start it or not. And the battery is dead. And the laptop is at 7%. So with that, I think it's a good time to call it for tonight, let the battery charge, and try tomorrow morning after I get out of work. That way the laptop will be full, the battery back there will be full. We got a fart. You guys heard it fart. So we are this close. Just not quite there. Anyway, that's going to be all for tonight. I will see you guys after I got to work. Alright, I am back. I just got back from work about half hour ago, and the battery says it's still charging. Probably not at 100%, but it should be way better than it is. Or this thing will go back and forth from full charge to charging because it's a battery tender and that's what it's supposed to do. But it should definitely have enough juice to start this car, because it almost gave it enough after charging for only 5 minutes yesterday. So what I'm going to do, turn the battery, or plug the battery back in right here. I'm going to actually tighten it down 100% of the way with a wrench instead of just finger tight like I have been. I'm going to go in, power the laptop back on, connect the Megasquirt to it, and we're going to try to do the first official start on the Megasquirt. Yesterday when I was turning it over, we did hear it putter a couple times before the battery died on me. So that was a good sign, at least. A little bit of puttering is better than nothing, and I swear to you, I wish I had the camera when I did it. It ran for about 3 seconds. Alright, the laptop is on, and I got the serial cable plugged in. It's time to power it on. Alright, and we have connection. I need to open the garage door so I don't choke on exhaust fumes. Alright, we are in neutral. Clutch in. Let's see if almost. Oh, it ran for a second. Oh, that's so close. Oh, we've almost got it, and it sounds all right too. It's not very happy. Alright, well, it did run. I do not know why it's so angry about something, but it ran, and you guys got to hear it. Now I need to figure out why it doesn't stay running. Oh, I should probably see if I can figure out how to data log on this. That stinky tools. I wonder if it's on there. I'm going to screw around with it and see if I can get it to data log for me. And I may also try loading a different map onto here just to see if it'll behave any differently. But that was impressive. Very, very impressive. I'm happy at least to hear it. And it sounded like it was running good for a second. Like when it first comes in, it runs alright, and then it loses its mind after that. And I'm not entirely sure why, but we will figure that out soon. So I'm going to go mess around with it, see if I can get this thing to idle, and we'll just go from there. Alright, the car is idling on its own. This is so exciting. It's currently in auto tune, and it's trying to get itself figured out. This is so cool. The one thing it sucks is that I don't have any radiator fans hooked up, so eventually I'll have to shut it off. But still, it's idling, it's running. I actually did it right. Aside from the signal issue, I got every wire right first try, it seems like, which pretty much blows my mind, because this is my first time ever trying anything like this. Steamy or smoky? Looks like steam. Is there a bunch all over? Oh yeah, there's a bunch all over the cabby. I am amazed at how well that auto-tune feature worked, like instantly. because I turned it on and it cleaned itself up in about 5 seconds, and I was actually able to take my foot off of the throttle completely, which is mind-boggling. So I'm gonna let it continue to auto-tune itself until it gets a nice steady idle, and maybe until the idle drops a little bit. Alright, well, I was able to get it to run a little bit better. Was not able to get the idle figured out yet. Of course, I can't cool the coolant or the engine down at all because I don't have fans wired up yet. But it ran, and with a little bit of messing around with stuff, I should be able to get it to idle. I'm going to do a little bit of research on a few things, and maybe check up on some of my wiring potentially. That's going to be it for this video. Probably going to end up splitting this into 2 parts. This is probably already part 2. Thank you all for watching. I will probably have to go add an ending to the first half. But like I said, this has been fun. It's nice to have it running. I am tired. I've been up since 1 or 2 o'clock yesterday, and it's, what is it, 7:30 in the morning. So I'm ready to go to bed. I'm gonna get up today, go work on this thing some more, and hopefully get it all squared away and be able to drive it. So like I said, thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you later.